everyone to the Murray City Municipal Council Committee of the Whole meeting, June 3rd, 2025. It looks like all council members are here except for Council Member Diane Turner. She will hopefully come later this evening. First thing we need to do is to approve the minutes of May 13th, 2025. Do I have a motion and a second for these minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of Committee of the Whole, May 13th, 2025.
I'll second.
Okay, any opposed? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are approved. Love my sidekicks. Okay, my first.
Guardrails.
Yeah, really, it's like bumper cars. Okay, first discussion item is number 1, discussion on an ordinance amending the city's fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Brenda Moore.
Oh yeah, that's the right one. I have to make sure I'm in the right year.
You have 10 minutes.
It won't take 10 minutes.
Perfect.
But thanks for having me here. This is the 4th of my 4 budget amendments. Maybe next year I'll try for 3. Overall, the budget for 2024-25 looks good. Revenues are coming in on target and expenses are coming in on target or below. Just have a little bit of cleanup that we're doing. As you know, we went to the LA fire. So we received $229,845 in reimbursement for that. So this budget opening receives that money, allocates $213,769 to fire salaries, benefits, the travel expenses they had, and vehicle maintenance, some buildings and grounds maintenance. Some of that was not related to fire, the deployment, the buildings and ground, and the vehicle, but they had some big expenses, so we're using that money that came in on the rent of our fire engine to take care of those for them. And then we're gonna transfer $16,000 to the CIP fund, and on the other side, the CIP fund will receive it and put it into future fire equipment. So they help pay for some of their own fire equipment. In the general fund, we're gonna increase the donation revenue, $15,000 from Intermountain Health, and allocate it to the parks marketing expenses. This was for the help pay for the Love Murray campaign. So we have been spending it, and it's good. There's a lot of Love Murray stuff out there. In the general fund, we're also going to increase the asset forfeiture revenue budget, $36,689, and allocate it for police equipment and new onboarding expenses. This is the first time I've ever done this because I found out that you can't receive asset forfeiture money and use it to supplant normal budget operations. It has to be for other stuff. It's the way the rules are written. I can't do anything about it, so I'm increasing the budget. And the police chief, has ideas on where to use this on some things that will be helpful to his people. Some of them, latest I heard was we're gonna tint some of the front windows of the vehicles. The new ones come in, the backs are all tinted. The front ones, keep it cooler in there, keep the computers cooler, which will help with equipment and stuff. So some of that stuff that we normally probably wouldn't do, he's handling this. We get this from the Metro DEA task force stuff, so it's drug money that's been run through the federal system. And then the last one, in the power fund, we're gonna receive $19,090,000 of bond proceeds, allocate $90,000 to the cost of bond issuance, and $3.6 million to infrastructure for the turbine rebuild, and the rest is going to reserves. It will be pulled out of reserves next year to do all of the projects that they're gonna work on next year. I don't know if you're thinking 90,000 is a whole lot of cost of issuance of the $19 million bond. The Public Works facility, which we went public sale. Its issuance for 20 million of bonds was $206,000. So 90,000. Private placement is pretty good. It's cheaper to do. The rate is a teeny bit higher, but. So that is in the budget opening that will come before you with a public hearing on the 17th. Any questions?
Just one, is on the fire reimbursement, is that a normal percentage wise of how much we're able to put in the CIP when we do fires?
No, they usually put more, but
Okay.
they,
So that
it
seems
depends on how much they get in rent, but they had a garage door that needed to be fixed. So
Use money.
they used most of the money. It was probably more like $50,000 it would have been better. It's rent on one engine for 2 weeks.
Is that like a set amount for each department, or are they given, like, say, like dollars from FEMA, and then they split it out depending on
No,
what
it's,
percentage?
we provide them with details of what it costs for the firefighters
Okay.
went, not in
So
general.
we bill them for.
We bill them and
Okay.
what it costs to backfill those positions in overtime.
Okay.
Yeah, plus benefits and taxes and all that stuff, plus the transportation, the per diems to get down there, the food and gas, and whatever to get there, they reimburse. And then they rent, depending on what equipment we take, we get rent. This was an actual fire engine, I believe, so its rent was a little bit more than when we just take our grass truck or whatever, Wildland. So that's how they,
Okay,
so it's a big reimbursement paper.
I'm sure.
And the state helps and is run through the state, and then they collect and then they send it to us, so.
Mine is a handling fee.
Actually, no.
Just
Sometimes the state actually does great things for us.
Totally kidding.
Side out.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Sorry I was late, but I'm here now.
I was just gonna say, and Councilmember Diane Turner has arrived. Welcome. Thank you. Okay, number 2, discussion on the council meeting schedule for 2025. Jennifer Kennedy presenting 10 minutes.
Okay, so when we did our calendar last year, I neglected to account for the fact that we would be having possibly a primary election this year. Not only that, but we are now going to be a vote center for that election, and we were not until a few weeks ago. So we need to adjust our August council calendar meeting schedule, if possible. So I gave you guys a short memo explaining everything, and then I gave you also a copy of red lines of the changes we need to make. So we'll just talk about them. And I can answer any questions. So on Tuesday, August 5th, we need to hold all of our meetings in the council chambers, both committee of the whole and council meeting, because they'll be using Poplar as voting in here, if that's okay with everyone. August 12th, we're going to cancel those meetings because it's the primary election day. On August 19th, we had a truth and taxation meeting, which I don't believe we're going to need anymore. So then what I would recommend is moving all of the rest of our meetings to August 26th, when we have to have a Board of Canvassers meeting anyway,
So no meeting on Tuesday, the 19th.
or the 12th. So the
Yeah,
meetings
or
in
the
August
12th.
will be, that has changed since the preliminary went out.
Oh, okay, so no more on the 19th. Okay, thank
Any
you.
questions on any of those? Okay, and Mayor, I want to make sure you can be here on the 26th, which you're part of the.
Yes, thank you, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we'll vote on that at the next council meeting, unless there's any questions. And I also looked through, just so you know, at the rest of the year, I didn't see anything that needed to be changed, because I thought if we're changing August, we might as well just go through the rest of the calendar. I didn't see any other conflicts. So if you guys notice anything, let me know, otherwise we'll just make those changes for August.
Sounds good.
Can I ask King Sorensen a question?
About
the
August?
Yeah, August 26th or not, later?
Sure. About the council meeting?
Well, there was something planned with the movie theater on the 26th of August in the meeting that I have. Yeah. And so I'm sure I'll talk to him later. That's fine.
Is there anything August 26th, Cam, that we have with the theater that night?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, because we were talking about it in our meeting for the opening.
Okay.
And they were looking at August 26th, don't they?
Yeah, August 26th meetings really aren't an option because we have to have more canvassers. That's the date we have to canvass.
Okay. I will just tell them that tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Any questions for Jennifer? Okay, we are on to discussion on in-home daycare business. Zachary Smalley presenting, 15 minutes. Hi.
I'm going to do just a brief preamble, if that's okay, just to kind of set up this issue. It's an interesting issue. The state, as you know, often makes changes. They say, cities, you shall revise your code to make this change. In this case, they've made a change. They said, cities, you may revise your code. We've had some folks that have expressed interest in increasing our numbers of allowable children for home daycare. As we did some initial research on that, we found that, and I'm going to let Zach go through most of this, but we found that there was a pretty wide discrepancy between what different cities do surrounding us in their daycare numbers. And also, this was something I had experienced in a previous city with a request. We took it to the council early on before going through the entire planning commission process as a way to give the applicants some idea of what their future was for this type of amendment, this request. In that case, that other cities, the council said to us, yeah, we're not really interested in that. So in interest of trying to give some clarity to the applicant and so they'll have an opportunity to know kind of which direction the council's heading so we don't spend time we don't need to if it's something that you don't necessarily want to go through. We wanted to talk about some of the pros and cons of increasing the numbers with you all. We'll go through that. That'll hopefully give some direction to us as staff and to the applicant. And with that, Zach will take it away.
Yeah, so just kind of bouncing off what Chad said, this is really kind of a vibe check, kind of how you're feeling about things. So really what we're looking at, there's lots of data out there that, childcare deserts and there's a lot of need for additional childcare throughout the country. I found this statistic today on Axios' website that says that it costs one toddler and one infant $24,000 a year for childcare. Yeah, so it's very expensive out there. So, like Chad said, I looked at some of the neighboring cities on what they allow. I'll try to explain this as best I can because this is just very rough ideas. So that P means it's allowed. So it's a permitted use in each city. If there's a C, it's for conditional. So, for example, Mill Creek allows up to 12 children. That includes their own children. So if they have 11 children, they can really only have one. So if it says including all, then it's obviously that. So, for example, West Jordan allows them to not be licensed whatsoever and do up to 4. However, if they are licensed, there's reference in there that it could be just following state code. So there's a wide range of what there is. There's not something where I can definitively say, absolutely, we should not do this, and absolutely, we should do this. So that's where we wanted to take, and that's where I kind of start every analysis on, is kind of what are other cities doing around us and elsewhere. So
This is just, these numbers are only in-home schools.
yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the categories?
That's a great question. I think it's just the level of impact.
Or is it the area or
I don't think so. I
no
think it's
square
just the
footage,
impact.
no number of caregivers per child or?
And so number of caregivers per child is going to be dictated by state law. We don't regulate that. But for example, that's probably what Sandy has, for example. So you have a certain number of regulations for a category 1 type facility versus a category 2, right? Because some cities do actually put in additional regulations for that type of stuff, and that doesn't stop Murray from doing some of that stuff as well. But as Chad had mentioned, we want to kind of get how you guys feel about it before we really start diving into, deep code revisions or, further research and things like that.
An example of a potential code that a city could adopt for a higher number of children in home daycare would be having some off-street parking. For the first 8, you might just say, hey, we'll live with what you've got. You've got a driveway, you've got streets around you, work it out so you have good drop-off and pick-up. Maybe when you get to 16 and 18, you go to a category 2, there's a conditional use. One of those potential conditions of the conditional use could be provide additional off-street parking or pick-up, drop-off areas to avoid impacts on neighbors. My experience within home daycare, of course, this is a needed service and supportive of this, but the number one complaint that you received is from neighbors concerned about pickup and drop-off and the impact on the parking, impact on circulation in the neighborhood, those kind of things. Number one complaint. There's others, but that's, occasionally you'll get some complaints about, kids playing outside and making noise. Usually it's that parking that you get the complaint. Parking and traffic.
Traffic, yeah.
So I just looked up the state code for Utah. If there's an infant 2 or under, it's only 3 children per caretaker.
Yep.
So if we go up to 16, we're talking potential, if they're all under 2, 6 caretakers.
So not necessarily, because we do have other code that doesn't allow. So for example, I think our home occupation code only allows for, I think, only one other person to actually come to the home to work at an in-home.
So they'd be limited by state law anyway.
Yeah, so it would be, they could only accept a certain number of type of children. So, yeah, a certain
Age
age
group.
range. Thank you.
Age group.
Type. It's fine,
I-
whatever.
We got it.
Sometimes though, there are
I
situations.
categorize
Rowdy kids, no.
There are situations where you'll have, for example, 2 caregivers living in the home, so they could add an additional one, right? So you'll have mom and daughter, for example, that are caregivers, and they'll have one additional employee.
Correct.
So there are ways you can have.
But an additional potential car would be one additional potential car
Correct.
that
Yeah.
who's already living in the house.
Yep. So, I mean, this, I did this very quickly, but just kind of opportunities and risks. So some of the opportunities is greater availability for childcare in the community, local business development, potential for neighborhood connections if they're actually taking on children in their area. And then also it allows for somebody to utilize their house outside of just, leaving for work and leaving all day long.
Are they limited by the hours of business?
So that's one thing that we could take into consideration as well. That's what I've seen in a few other cities, is that specific for daycares, they only allow them to go from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Where right now our home occupation code allows us to go pretty much 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we don't have a lot of restricted hours. But that is an opportunity that we could refine this a little bit more to be. That's one of the things we would take into consideration as we're drafting any proposed code. The person that had applied for this just asked for just a writ. What's the word I'm looking for? Just a carte blanche. Move it up to 16, and we can come up and say maybe they'll tweak this, and then we'll move forward with it. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is that maybe tweak code and change. So
There's also the issue, in my mind, of safety for the children. If you only have 1 per 6 or,
8.
that
That's what it is.
puts up red flags
For
for
how old?
me all over the place.
One caretaker for every 8 children, with a maximum of 2 under the age of 2.
Yeah,
so
that's how.
If you get a third
That's crazy.
2-year-old
Okay.
or under,
Yeah.
then you have to have another caretaker. That's what I'm understanding from the code.
And we want to be clear, we're not necessarily against or for, we just want to acknowledge that there are impacts. We want to, and it's important to acknowledge that even though state law allows it, that doesn't mean we have to do it, because there are impacts. We don't want to pretend like there's not. I think one of those is the number, right? There is a certain amount of square footage per child required for these in-home daycares. That's set by state law. They have a certain number of square feet per child that's required. So, looking at the various zones, it might be that if we decide to go forward, that we say for these larger daycares, maybe they have to be in larger properties. Maybe that's just something that has to happen. So that's the kind of thing we would look at potentially. Like I said, it'd be interesting to see all of the conditions that Sandy includes, but it could be that when you get between 16 to 18 or 12 to 18, that there are additional off-street parking spaces required.
Yeah.
So that's things if you want us to go forward, that's some things we'd probably propose as a way to mitigate some of those concerns.
And I think that's where we wanted to come and have this discussion with you beforehand, is that before we started writing and spend a lot of staff time drafting something, but we knowing ahead of time whether it's even something we want to really consider is something that would help us as staff kind of get better direction.
So okay, a couple questions I have here. Just the process of daycare. We're saying traffic is potentially a concern, but I imagine, and I don't know daycare, the daycare world.
I do.
So you might be able to. But I'm assuming that it's not one drop off and one time that they drop in and drop off. Like it's going to be spread out over multiple hours.
Yeah.
So the traffic concern is we're looking at, if we go up to 16, it's 16 cars, 32 cars going up and down a street spread over 10 hours. So it's a pretty minimal impact. Like I get that much.
Yeah, and typically what we do so right now we allow up to 12. I should have made that clear. Right now we allow 12. It would be called a major home occupation at that point. They have to get neighbor signatures. If they can't, they go to the planning commission. But typically with those, especially if they're going to the planning commission, we put in on there like a staggered, like pick up and drop off. Is required. And that would be something I think that if we do draft something, it would be good to put that in the code, like only, 4 cars per hour or something like that. I don't know. And I'm just throwing numbers
It's just
out
such a
there.
small number.
Yeah, but you want a way to, to his point, where you can pick up and drop off the street, where you're not pulling up along the curb and dropping off your kids. I mean, that's, I see it best, unloading child seats and stuff like that.
The only thing, so I don't mean to keep muddying waters with with a bunch of different scenarios, but there was an instance where somebody applied for a business license for a daycare here, right, and wanted 12, and then you had another one here for 12.
Okay.
And then you had another one here for 8. So that
With
could,
one street, that could be a
for
traffic
sure.
impact.
And so that's where it could kind of come in to be a problem.
Okay.
It'll have a larger impact on others. But again, there's ways for us to write in mitigation for that.
If we do go this direction, I'm hesitant. I know the natural inclination we have as a council is to go larger lots, go to the R18, R110. But my guess is most of our R110 residents don't use this. It's gonna be our RM15s is where it's gonna be hit. Like our first time home buyers are gonna need this more.
Yep.
So I'm hesitant to put a lot size in there, or we need to look at a way to mitigate traffic and on a smaller lot, because I think most of them are gonna be, smaller lots are gonna utilize this more than a large lot.
Explain it to me. Small lots are going to utilize. So you're saying someone lives in an apartment per se, an RM25.
Well, I'm just thinking it's gonna be a lot of first-time home buyers who are
Looking for
Yeah.
extra income?
looking for an extra income.
Oh, they're gonna.
Trying to make it work, and that's where we're gonna get into some of these smaller lots where it's gonna be utilized more.
Yeah.
Like I'm just looking at our RM10. I don't think they're stretching their income.
So
in
could
most
someone in
cases.
an apartment do this?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Any permitted residential use is allowed to have a home occupation.
So a 40 unit apartment could have 40 daycares in there.
But I'm sure
I mean,
the apartment complex would have rules against that.
They
though. I
would,
mean,
yeah.
And
we do-
HOAs.
We do require
Yeah.
HOAs.
verification on that as well.
Permission, yeah, we'd have to have permission from the property owner for that. to-
Yeah, but
for sure.
what I'm saying here is now we've lost control of it, and if HOA says, whatever you want, we could have 40 daycares in one building.
You could, I mean, it's
I'm
very,
going
I
to
know,
the extreme,
I know,
right?
it is
You
the
are.
very hard extreme, yes.
HOAs
Yeah.
normally.
I want to understand the extremes so I can understand the middle.
Yeah, for sure.
So-
And yeah, I mean, there could technically, at some point, I think we would probably step in and say, probably at the 35th, and say, maybe that's too many.
But
You
So
know,
we're already 35 of 40.
Right, no,
34 is the problem.
I'm just saying that's usually where we
How
come
long
in.
has this been on ordinance, this one here?
They moved it up to 12, in my time here, so at least in the past 7
It
years.
says 2017 on our notes.
That's probably when the whole.
That's when it went to from 8 to 12.
Oh, is that-
It was 2017.
Okay,
So it went from
Well, there
8
you
to
go.
12?
And HOA has a board.
Yeah.
And HOA boards, if they find out that they're being rented or any kind of business, they're shut down.
Yeah.
Both daughters had HOAs.
But I don't think it's out of our control, right? We can't control an HOA.
No, but the
But they still
HOA
have to
board
follow
does.
the city, even if the HOA,
The HOA
they still
board
have to follow
does.
city
They don't,
regulations as well.
and they,
It's allowed as a home occupation. These ones then.
Yeah, any,
So does the residence then pay business property tax or still pays resident property tax?
it would, because it's still their primary residence, so it would still be a residential property tax.
But that draws another question. What if I buy an apartment that has a business below and I own both of them? Can I pay?
That's a great question. I don't know taxes. I don't know how that's.
I can
split.
see attorneys, you know, because they're sneaky little bunch of GLs over there pretend like it's not. Because for a fact, he's licking his chops there.
I don't know how taxing works when it comes to those types of things. I don't know how taxing works in nine out of 10
your
things.
mind just.
So,
Yeah, in any
like a
case,
squirrel.
the person would have to live in that residence. So you couldn't-
Correct.
You couldn't have, two apartments, they live in one and they're having the other one as a daycare.
I
They
could have
to
a living
live.
room and a kitchen in there and daycare. I mean, I can make it work.
Well, I think
If I
it's
save-
unlikely.
Are you thinking of
15,000
a new
tax.
job for your
I'm just
wife?
thinking.
Yeah.
I just want to think like the criminal. You know, I want to think like someone's going to break these rules. How are we going to break
The
this?
thing that, I guess when I think about this, the thing I always come back to is we're talking about someone taking care of little kids. So
Correct.
it's gotta be someone that wants to do that. So I think that's gonna be somewhat self-limiting, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
And someone that has a daughter involved in daycare for her child, not all the children show up. There's sickness, vacation, moving, parents are sick, or the child is out for a couple of weeks.
Correct.
So having 16,
That's why they sign up 20.
no,
So I will say, this is something, I didn't think this was gonna be part of the
Anyways.
conversation today, so I didn't put it in the slides.
Yeah.
But this is a handout from Department of Health and Human Services. Is that what you were looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah, so up to 8 between this ages, right? So you could have up to 5 between 2 and 12, 2 0 to 17 months, and 1 18 to 23, and it kind of goes all over the place. They dictate how many children and what ages there can be.
So,
and this daycare is not like for morning session, and then those kids leave, and then they have an afternoon session, and
It
those
could.
kids.
It could, that's,
So there's like a rotation, something going on?
so is a preschool considered the same as a daycare?
in Murray's code, yes.
Yeah.
So you could have
We call it
64
all.
cars.
So we,
I'm just saying, you could have up to 64 cars. You have 16 kids in the morning, 16 kids in the afternoon, 2 trips each.
I will tell you, so here's an example that we dealt with with this just very recently. It's called Sound Beginnings. It's a music school that'll be going in off Vine Street as a home occupation. It's a major home occupation. She will be having 2 classes of 12. But one of the things that she specifically said is that the parents will stay there. So we did have to make sure that parking was there, which she has a very large driveway. And that when we count that, we count the person that's driving in that instance, we count the person that's driving and the child. So they can only have 6 students in there at one time. So we do check for those things, and we're watching what's going on, and we get a pretty good detailed plan
Yeah.
of what they're proposing.
Yeah, so let me just give you my vibe. I'm a normal libertarian guy, right? Don't tell me what to do with my property. But I know there's crazies out there like me who would think about, ooh, how can we stretch this to make the most money out of this?
Yeah.
So that's my concern, that there are people like me out there. Yeah, I hope they're more normal.
And
That's my concern.
what there is always going to be bad actors in what we do, right? But what we try to do is put in common sense regulations, and then we go after the ones that are breaking out of those. That's what's really important.
And the people that take care of kids, they're really good people. I'm sorry.
So how's the monitoring on this? I mean, I'm curious, I hardly hear anything about this. Just curious if you're hearing lots of stuff that you have to go out and send someone out.
Business licensing takes care of it so they have to renew every single year. And I think they have to do it with the state every single year as well. So it is watched.
There's fire inspections for these types of uses as well, so it's watched pretty closely. So that gives us a chance to, this is one of those that we can reevaluate every year. And if it's not going well, we can, I think in some cases, some cities require a conditional use permit for it, that's an option. I don't think we do at this point, right? It's just
if it's over 8, yes.
It's over 8, we do? Yeah, good. So that's another way that we have some additional regulatory authority.
And the square footage is regulated, right?
Per the state, yeah, it's 35 square feet per kid.
So we would be following the state if we go to
Well,
16.
So we would allow up to 16.
Okay.
But
And we would follow the state guidelines?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a may, not a shall, so we can decide if we want to or not.
Right.
On
Okay.
16.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant on this one to go, especially if we're considering a preschool in this. If a preschool does a gathering with the parents, you're now adding 30 or 40 cars 2 times that day, on that street. And if it's if their graduation ceremony, you get the parents and the grandparents.
But normally they have those kind of events are held at someplace else because of the bigness of the group. They'll have it at a park, or they'll have it at a museum. They will have it at another venue. They will not have it at the home.
The principals in my district do have it at the home. I'm thinking of a specific instance right now as I'm bringing this up of and if we went to 16, it's a lot. I don't know. I can be persuaded, but I'm hesitant.
Yeah, I have a hard time.
Can you, I don't know if this is allowed, would it be possible to see one of these? Maybe talk to a neighbor? Is that
Technically,
across the line?
well, technically, it's not allowed in Murray right now. So technically, there shouldn't be anybody operating.
No, I mean, somebody that say for instance, somebody in my area that wants to go to 16, if there is one, I don't know.
I don't know how much they can or can't talk with an applicant.
Or not an applicant, but
Okay, somebody
neighbors.
else just doing it. I mean, you can definitely reach out to
do their own
neighbors.
thing.
Yeah, you can do your own thing and talk to neighbors all you
We
want.
probably wouldn't throw out a name and say go with them.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
just you
yeah.
guys.
Okay, so I just have to find one.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm
Sure, if you just Google daycare.
But that's
So the
not
applicant
crossing
does-
rural lines.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
The applicant does have to talk to the neighbors before the application goes through.
So yeah, and they're called major home occupations. So yeah, they have 2 options. Either they have to go get their neighbor signatures.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way around.
That's for all businesses,
Yeah.
not just childcare. Like if you have
Correct.
a beauty salon
Yeah,
or anything
yeah.
like that, you have to do that.
Or if you're unable to get those signatures or unwilling, you can go to the planning commission.
So if we did go forward, here are my 2 things that I would say. Number one, I think there needs to be at least a third on-site parking place for them, because if you're gonna get to 16, you're gonna need additional employees, and we don't want them on the street. You have to have another spot for at least that employee, plus the parents to pull in and out of a driveway.
Yeah.
And I would consider pulling off the planning commission option. If you're going up to 16, that you have to get the resident signatures.
I like that. I like that.
Because if your neighbors are all right with it, they can deal with the problems too.
Right.
What about no response from neighbors?
Well, you'd have to do a certain number of neighbors, like,
Yeah.
we would get like 30 neighbors, I'm just pulling a number out of my hat.
I'd like to have a large percentage of neighbors respond, either yay or nay, because we get a lot of no responses.
Yeah.
And then we get people later on going, oh, I just, I got so much stuff in the mail, I didn't know what to do with it,
Well, so what we do, we don't send it out for them to respond. We actually make the applicant go out
Yeah.
and speak to
Okay.
their
And
neighbors.
then
I
they bring
will
a
say-
signed form?
Yeah, and then we verify those signatures against who owns the property.
Okay. Okay.
I will say the only problem with that,
Yeah.
there are instances where like a home is vacant, like it's for sale and vacant, or the person rents the home and they don't have a way to get in contact with the owner. There's like a rental layer. So that's something that we would probably have to work through. But there could be opportunities there.
But we'd still need that. I mean, I'd feel better. I mean, if somebody's trying to sell their house, now all of a sudden there's a bigger daycare next to it. I mean, they should be informed somehow.
Seems like a lot to me. I just had
Did you get the vibe then?
that's a lot of kids.
Kinda.
Still,
It's a mixed vibe.
I'm still hesitant.
I just think there's lack of daycare for these women
That's a
and
good
men
point.
that have to
No,
work
I
know.
more
There is
than two jobs.
Definite
And going to these
Those kids need
big
to be
daycare
safe.
factories, they're expensive. They're
Yep.
so
And you're
expensive.
right, this
Sure
would be
are.
less expensive.
So it sounds, maybe if I can kind of recap and just see if we're getting the vibe, it sounds like there is at least some interest in us
To at least
pursuing this.
Yeah, to at least
Coming with some
consider.
Yeah.
I would say.
recommendations.
Go forward.
Yeah, move forward
About
with
it
it.
more.
Thank you.
Yep.
We know you don't have
Way to
anything
read
else
the room,
going on,
Chad.
so I'll give you something to do.
We do have an active application. This was an application that was made by a citizen, so we do want to.
Touch base.
How many applications have we had to go up to 16? Is this the only one?
So this is an application for a text amendment.
Yeah.
So we don't get those very often.
Call. If we had several calls, just an anomaly to get the call to go up to 16.
It
There's
says
been more
they-
than one.
Yeah,
There's
there's
2 or 3.
Yeah, we've had a few this year.
Those come through our business license division.
And also, if the neighbors see a little daycare in their neighborhood, that's a big convenience for the mom and dad instead of traveling
Yeah.
15, 20, 30, 40 minutes away from their child because they work in Salt Lake City and they can't get to their kid, but they're close to their home, then
Yeah.
I just have a daughter that has daycare, that needs daycare, and I just feel that we can have daycares in the neighborhoods to help these parents out and getting closer to the daycare for them to drop them off and then get to work and then come back, and they don't have to drive someplace to pick their child up and then drive back to get home.
We have,
So-
all we're doing is increasing from 12 to 16, that's the
Yes.
request, right?
That's it.
Okay.
That's all we're asking,
Yeah, we're
that's
not
all
adding
we're
any more.
doing.
It
And,
seems like a lot to me. I just have a
But-
hard time with
Yeah, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but.
but there are,
do it.
but there are women and there are men
You can do it.
that have to have these childcare
it. No,
because they are both
I get that.
working. And to have it close to their home is an advantage for
Of
them.
course. Of course.
And I don't, and my granddaughter is not at the daycare all the time because she's sick or mom's sick or dad's sick or whatever. That they're not, or on vacation or other reasons. I just feel that having a daycare close to a home is an advantage for both parents and the child. But that's my take on it.
We'll have some more
Yeah.
good robust
Yeah, well,
discussion in weeks.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Thanks.
Look around, do
Thanks.
some stuff. I'm just gonna continue sitting.
Okay. Okay, our next and final one is discussion on Murray City Center District 2 City Center Form-Based Code. Zachary Smallwood, you have 45 minutes.
Awesome. Yeah, so this has been, I didn't get it done in 6 months, but I got it done in 9. So I still think that's really good for getting an entire zone rewritten. So yeah, this is the form-based code. Rezoning, so this is 2 things. It's rezoning, or it's enacting the form-based code as a text, and then rezoning all the properties that are in the MCCD to the form-based code. So it's a couple things. So affected area is everything in the MCCD except for 3 little parcels that are, apologize, let me get my laser pointer, just right here. They are currently in the commercial development zone. They were already future land use designated to go into the city center, so we just locked them in there anyway. Those, at least these 3 properties are owned by, or I guess these 4 properties are all owned by one group, and they were gonna plan on incorporating this anyway. So just add to it. So we started, what kind of brought forth the form-based code was a couple of things. It mentions it in the general plan numerous times up here on the screen. Initiative 1 for the city center district, best practices for implementation was a form-based code. And the general plan cites form-based districts in a lot of other ways as well. Additionally, in the downtown strategic plan that was adopted in May of last year, also had a recommendation of implementing a form-based code for the city center. A lot of what came from that was a lot of people cared about what the buildings were looking like and how they functioned with the area. So this was one of those recommendations to do that. So I'm pretty happy with this map. I think I did a good job. So this gives you a better idea of kind of where everything is incorporated. You can see in the blue marker, that's where we're sitting on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side is the old City Hall area. So everything in that red is kind of what's will be governed by the form-based code if adopted.
Well, on the map, I'm
Sure.
confused. I thought we did not include the old City Hall site into the form-based code. Why is that now added?
That was added because we didn't want to leave remnants of the MCCD in the area. This does not affect the entitlements for the Triumph Group.
Okay.
So they still have an active application going through the system. So they will not be affected by this at all.
So they're
We thought-
grandfathered into the MCCD?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, they're grandfathered into the MCCD. What we didn't want to have happen is leaving in effect the MCCD review committee and all those regulations for what in essence becomes 3 parcels. It just didn't make a lot of sense. It was a lot of overhead and things we would have to manage. So we looked at either, changing it to maybe like the CMU, which is what the old Best Buy site, Point of 53rd, is currently zoned, or extending out this one. And we decided this would be probably more impactful and have a better aesthetic and feel for the overall area. So,
Makes sense.
yes.
I always thought it was weird that we were just gonna have that one zone. It's like that one parcel that was its own zone.
Yeah, yeah. We it was a very last minute thing that we decided to throw it in.
So this is something the council will have to approve, the addition of that to the to the form-based code?
It's included in
It's included in this request?
in that request.
Okay.
Yes, it is included. And it was reviewed by the planning commission, everything. All your maps are updated in the form-based code
Okay.
with the appropriate stuff. It's placed in the Boulevard District. For those who know what the Boulevard District is, it allows up to 2 stories by right. You can go up to 5, 3, technically you can go up to 3 by right. 5 if you step back and I think 30 feet or so. So it's pretty much everything that lines State Street is that same Boulevard District.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We can't hear.
Okay.
Say again, sir?
We can't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll try to speak a little bit louder.
Yeah. And yeah, I will also be giving this exact presentation in 2 weeks as well at the public hearing. So this is broken out into 9 chapters. I just broke this first into 5. So there's the place type, form district, use, street types, and building types. Form-based codes are very different in that they are not so much focused on the use that's going on, but the form of the building that's going there as more of as a completed picture of what the whole downtown should look like. So I'm just going to go through these very quickly. So form districts, we have I think 5 of them total. So the Civic Center, which is that purple right in the middle, kind of where we're sitting. Characteristics of that is more community gathering spaces, civic uses, and restaurant and recreation. It allows heights between 3 and 6. And yeah, so then there's the Boulevard District, which I kind of went over a little bit earlier. That's that orange right along State Street going up and down. Allows heights of 2 to 3. Historic State Street character, vertical mixed uses, and active streetscapes. Then you have the neighborhood corridor form district, which is that green color along the top of the map. That's more neighborhood supportive businesses, residential focus, and horizontal mixed uses. Again, heights between 2 and 3. Then we have our transit neighborhood, form district. That's just a handful of parcels just down at the bottom of the map in that bluish color. That is for more office concentration, residential concentration, and vertical mixed use. This is the most intense of the area, mostly because this is closest to the Murray Central transit station. So heights varying between 4 and 8. And then we have residential transition, which is on the far right hand of your screen here. So that immediately abuts up against residential uses. So it's a step down in density from State Street, residential focus, and again allows heights of 2 to 3 stories. So uses, this is going to be a change in the way that we do uses in Murray. This is very common across almost every other city in the state. And where we're really just looking at them in a table format on what's permitted. There's the U, which is only allowed on upper floors, or there's an N for not permitted. So this is just an example of a couple of those. Again, this is not the main focus, where zoning, traditional Euclidean zoning is focused on use more than it is about the form or function of a building.
So hold on a second, I'm trying to understand the chart. So if I were to go to the Boulevard District, it tells me that residential are allowed only U, which is the upper stories only.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and then I just follow that down. Now, hospitality is permitted, and residential care is not permitted.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. So street types. So every type, every street is a little bit different in the downtown area. State Street is going to be very different from 48th, and 48th is going to be very different from 5th Avenue. So they should have different treatments and should be treated very differently. So Each one does talk a bit about what it looks like. So it talks about, general street types and street type standards, types of trees that go along the street, trees that go there, width of sidewalks, things like that for each type of, streets. They said street a lot in there, so. Also, I'll go over a couple of these really quickly. These are the building types. So there are, I think, about 4 or 5 generic building types. There's general, which is where we've got most of the buildings in the form-based code, which then each one has its own list of standards depending on what form district it's in. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Jake Pearson in the Planning Commission that suggested adding the colors, the form district colors to each of the things. And I think, I don't know why none of us have ever thought of that before in planning, but no form-based code has that. And I love this, just throwing that out there. There's also a limited bay building. So this is if, you have roll-up doors, almost kind of like the armory, right? They have those bay doors. Those are going to be, that would be more of a bay building. We also have row buildings. So this is going to be more residential in nature, but it could have some commercial components as well. And then we have yard buildings that are kind of more your single family residential lots. And these are only allowed in the residential transition form district. So that's why there's only one color that you can't really tell. And then lastly, I guess I should mention civic buildings. Not very many people should be building civic buildings except the city, but there are still standards for that. Yeah, right. Okay, then here's the remainder of the chapters: open space, landscaping, parking, signage, administration, and glossary. So open space, the main difference, so I want to get 2 things over here. Chapter 6, open space, and then 7 is landscaping. Open space, you can think of it as more like actual like parks, plazas, things like that. Not necessarily what's happening on an individual site, but thinking of open space as an actual like destination or a use of an area, right? Almost like a building type. It's just type of land use kind of. Landscaping is where we're actually talking about what's going on the site itself. So, buffering between neighboring uses, things of that nature. So over here on open space, we have a few different types. So we have pocket parks. So this is the build to zone. That's what BTZ stands for. So there's an open available space that you can construct your building or provide it a little bit of extra space. So this dictates, what can go in there, right? So permitted structures, you can have a monument or sculpture, water feature, stage structures, planted areas, things like that. Then 2 other examples, you have a park example and a town square example that each have their own requirements as well. Excuse me. On the landscaping chapter, like I mentioned back in the streets area, each street has a type of tree. So I tried to find some pictures of the exact tree that's going there. So they're corresponding with the color they're bordered with the same color that the tree is. So you can see that red, eastern redbud along 5th Avenue, honey locust along State Street. That's already what exists on State Street. So should be pretty familiar. Then, like I said, landscaping, so side and rear landscape buffer requirements. Parking, this has been looked at pretty intensely, and we feel really good about where we're at. And
That took some negotiation.
Yeah, it did, for sure. So, but I think we're at a good place.
Zach?
Yeah.
Back one slide on the landscaping requirement. You're gonna include things, because I'm assuming that's edge of a parking lot type of landscaping. Are we gonna make sure that we don't end up with little islands of things that waste a ton of water because it's really hard to water, just a little tiny strip of
Yes,
there?
yeah, right here, so this is just a depiction of just
Yeah, it's just the idea popped in my mind.
But for sure. You'll be seeing in a few weeks an update to our landscaping requirements.
Okay,
So it's gonna be something that, yeah, will be addressed.
thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, parking, pretty standard. And then signage, which is, I apologize, this isn't a great picture. But
The
yeah.
signage is not
The
very good.
signage is not good on this. But this is largely dictated by federal law, you know, on place type and timing, things of that nature. So have things like wall signs, yeah, that stuff. Thought I had more slides on that one. Administration and glossary, this just really talks about how things go forward in how to get approvals, who's doing the reviews. It also addresses non-conforming structures. So that's one of the major things here is that if this zone gets adopted, this form-based code, nothing changes for the people that already exist. They're allowed to continue existing and operate just as they are, no problems. Yes.
But what if they wanted to restore that building?
Correct. So if they want to
With a
restore
trigger,
a historic structure, they can restore the historic structure and leave it alone.
Okay.
If they want to add on to that historic structure, the addition has to meet the form-based code standards. So for example, I think what you're getting at is like the T-rows, right? So we didn't want, originally it said that everything had to come into conformance. I was like, well, wait, we don't want the T-rows, the new T-rows where the chapel is, to look like a brand new building right on the corner there. So we figured out a way to change that. So just the addition has to come into conformance, but on historic structures like that, they can stay to retain their historic character. So.
And then I'll add, on the Boulevard District, we do have this building material requirements, so it has a historical look along the boulevard.
I didn't catch that.
For sure.
Okay.
But yeah, there are also ways to expand your nonconformity to certain degrees. So there's a lot of flexibility in this, but also allows for a lot of redevelopment as well. So, and then the last chapter is glossary. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's just filled with a lot of defined terms. So, findings here. So staff believes the proposed text amendments further the objectives of the general plan, and the amendments are in harmony with objective 11 of the land use and urban design element. And the amendments will allow and support context-sensitive quality mixed-use developments. And the Planning Commission held a public hearing on April 17th and voted 6-0 to recommend approval to the City Council. And then we have two very large recommendations. So I'm happy to take any questions you guys have.
Okay, I have some questions.
Yeah.
I don't know what page it's on. Anyways, it just says banners may be attached to banner arms on light standards between 16 feet and 23 feet in height. Are they going to attach their signs to the city's lights, street lights?
We only allow the city
Okay.
post on our
So
street lights.
the business will not be able to post on
Correct.
city? Okay.
If they have their own like internal lighting system that are
Okay.
up that high, they
Okay.
can post their own banners.
Okay, and then xeriscaping. It says landscaping shall be provided along the entire frontage of the property to a minimum depth of 10 feet except the permitted driveway. Sprinkling system shall be installed, permanently maintained. So can they xeriscaping that access requirements?
I apologize. So what you're looking at
Yeah.
is part of the ordinance, and I should have made that a little clear as well.
Okay.
So as part of this ordinance,
Uh-huh.
we're cleaning up anything that references the MCCD and
Okay.
changing it to the form-based code.
Okay,
So a lot of that is really just changing the name of something. That does not include that is exempted. I think that actually specifies that the form-based code is exempted from that,
Okay,
because it has its own landscaping standards.
okay.
Yeah.
And then it said during the planning commission meeting, Commissioner Hacker asked what will become of the current MCCD review committee? And you said that the committee will have to be replaced with a new committee. Is that what you're looking at?
Correct.
And
Yep.
they will be over the form-based code?
Correct.
Or
Yep.
whoever
Yep.
is chosen? Okay, very good. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
What kind of outreach did you do to the citizens about the form-based code?
We did have an open house. I don't remember the exact date it was, but we did have a public open house. And then we did reach out to individual large property owners throughout the city. Our consultant had a subcontractor that actually did the MCCD strategic plan and kind of had a relationship there. And invited to meet with, I think you met with representatives from IMC, and I think the Wrights, there were,
That's what I was going
Parsons Baker, I can't remember her first name. Wendy, yes, yeah, met with her, but we had sent out, invitations for that,
And you tried to reach out to the other property owners?
Correct.
That's just to, you're able to get hold of.
correct.
Yeah, one of the comments when you had that meeting with the planning commissioner says, Commissioner Klinger and Mr. Barney had a discussion about the housing in his neighborhood and the impact of putting in an 8-story building. And then Mr. Barney shared some neighborhood history and said the neighborhood was more residential in the past. And then Diane Powers asked if they could choose to include her property in the zone because it is historic. And Chair Richards indicated he didn't know. And she said she tries to keep it as historic as possible.
It's included in it.
Okay, all right. And then, of course, Mike Todd, owner, is having a problem with it because he said he owns many buildings on the east side and he feels blindsided by Murray City. And so, anyways, and then Susan Wright wasn't very happy with it. So, but you did say to Mr. Barney, he said that, yes, the property owner could put in an 8-story building, but staff is trying to work with them.
Yeah, so currently, as the code sits right now, they can put in a 10-story building in about 130 feet, as it's done today. So this is actually reducing some of that height. And it's, yes, 8 is still tall, but again, it's been zoned for over a decade to allow 10 and nothing's been built. I don't think just by adopting this tomorrow, an 8-story building is gonna pop up. It's gonna take some time.
And we don't have to have an 8-story building,
That's
Right.
what the max.
We could-
Yeah,
but we could reduce that.
well, the
We can
code would
make that
allow.
modification in the code.
In the
We
future,
want-
yes, yeah. Any other questions?
No, I just wanted to understand the comments from the citizens and how they felt.
Yep.
So would you just go over once more? What is the advantage of having this?
Yeah, so it allows for a more consistent look and feel for the entire downtown. You're not gonna get two wildly different types of buildings. You will get variation in looks and feel and architectural style, but you're not gonna get something that, you know, a lot of what we heard is people didn't like the look of Home 2 Suites. And that is a very flat building, right? The form-based code wouldn't allow that. It would require certain articulation. This requires vertical delineation, horizontal push and pull, things of that nature. So this really focuses on the look and feel of the district, where we already had a very loose use list for the form-based or for the MCCD. So this is actually just kind of putting more guardrails on what the look and feel of the district should be.
So it doesn't just leave it up to whim or,
No.
someone's fancy. They have to.
Cheap design.
They have to, right, they have to
Cookie
follow
cutter.
this, and
Yeah,
that's-
they have to follow it. There's gonna be a lot more context sensitivity towards everything, I think.
Yeah, at one point I went over this with a fine tooth comb, so. Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot to it, but it really will make sure that the development, that we do have control over the development and it fits our vision, so I think that's important.
Yeah, 100%.
Can I offer up one more thing? I know there's a lot of members of the public here tonight. With this, of course, this meeting's primarily for the council. This is a
Yeah.
work session. We'll be
Yeah,
coming back to
right.
you at your next meeting for adoption. We would be more than happy to meet with anybody that would like to come, talk with us individually about the code, go through it. One thing that should be mentioned that you all know is that you've had several opportunities now to look at the code yourselves through work session meetings. We've had a couple of members of the council that are on the
Steering committee.
steering committee, thank you. I want to say task force.
We're not the only one that
Steering
forgets me.
Steering committee. A couple of our members have had some very detailed meetings with the consultant as well. So we'd love to have that opportunity to talk in detail. If there are detailed questions outside of this meeting, and happy to take those calls and meet with people between now and the hearing. So,
Do we know when this is going to be presented in the council meeting?
2 weeks.
scheduled for the 17th.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay.
And it's also sustainably responsible, and I think that's really important. Has those features as well, so for me, that's very important to my constituents.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
So if you guys leave this with me, I'll send it home with you again. If you want to keep it, then you will be getting another copy.
This is it.
She has spoken.